Being relentless in your pursuit of healing and growth. I'm Ben Bufana, and I'm just completing another article for this week. And since I've included so much detail that I want to capture in this video, like many authors and academics, I will be reading from some sections of the article. So let's dive into it. Back when I was in seventh grade, I wasn't doing all that well in school, mainly because I hadn't developed good study habits. I didn't at that time really understand or know what it took to learn. And so one of my teachers called my mom and arranged a parent teacher meeting. And she cared enough to help me to instill these study habits, which have persisted with me to this day. And so, whether it's in academics or um, healing and personal growth and our relationships and our professional lives, it's so critically important for us to learn how to learn. At 17, I made my way to Oklahoma and I found myself living among a community of Kiowa Indians, spending a lot of time with the native elders and sitting up many nights in the peyote meetings. And in many ways, I feel extraordinarily fortunate to have had the opportunity to apprentice with Horace Delkai, one of the last surviving traditional doctors among the Kiowa tribe. And Horace transmitted portions of his own healing gifts to me. And in order to earn the right to work with these gifts of healing, he would have me go on the Vision Quest, which is a native practice that involves going out to fast alone in the mountains for 4 days and nights without food or water. The training I went through with Horace was incredibly difficult. At times, he was testing me, and even more so because I was a white guy. It had this mindset of like, well, just how much do you really want this? And at the same time, I had this profound determination because I knew from the time I was 14, if ever given the opportunity, this is what I wanted to do with my life. I apprenticed with Horace for about 3 years, put myself back into college, but skipping over many years later, after a few too many mugging attempts and nearly getting arrested the last time that happened because I whipped out pepper spray and chased the attacker down the street, I decided that I was going to find the most ruthless master I could find to train with. And I ended up training with Shifu Li Tai Liang in the internal martial arts of Xing Yi Quan, Baguazhang, Tai Chi, and Qigong. Shifu would be teaching me all these various forms, and the movements are executing these forms could be quite difficult at times. There are a lot of ways in which you're moving your body that you're not used to moving, especially if you're a Westerner. But I was persistent. I kept applying myself. And in addition to the forms and also learning their applications in fighting, there's a great deal of internal practice that one does, practices to build the explosive internal power that makes these forms so devastatingly effective. Having trained with both a traditional Native American doctor and having gone through the Vision Quest, I missed some years in my 20s, but at the age of 30, I started feeling that pull to return to the Wichita Mountains. At 31, I did go back. And since that time, I've been going twice a year. What was that, 1993? I've been going year after year like clockwork, returning to the mountain. So it's that commitment and consistency is so crucial. But I have also had the opportunity to spend time with a lot of extraordinarily powerful individuals from different spiritual traditions. Because of the fact that I've trained with a traditional Native American doctor and having gone through so many vision quests, I'm able to work as a conduit, like the traditional native doctors over the centuries, in order to do this work, you open yourself up, you're allowing other forces and beings to work through you to facilitate healing within the bodies and minds of others that wouldn't otherwise be possible. I do this work because I truly do care about people. I want to see their bodies and minds heal, not just physically, but also the trauma, the other emotional wounding that people are carrying, all the stress that people have internalized. I want to see people realize their true potential and to build strength in both body and mind. But what concerns me is, despite what many people say, it's actually only a small percentage that are truly willing to do what it takes to make that happen. So in the remainder of this video, I'm going to be discussing some of the impediments that are preventing people from healing, because as you gain the understanding, you're better able to make the decisions and to follow through with constructive action that will actually make healing your body and mind and realizing your potential possible. So anyway, these days, it's more and more common for people to seek out talk therapy. And while that can be an incredibly important part of many of our healing journeys, it was for me as well, the problem is it often doesn't get to the core issues. Instead, there's a tendency to intellectualize what needs to be deeply felt and processed. And still, it's the route a lot of people are taking to deal with their stagnation. In many cases, people going into psychotherapy come away thinking they've done the work, that they've healed, like they've graduated. But the truth is, they're nowhere near healed. You can hear it in the way they're talking about growth, and yet you still see them enacting much of the same dysfunction. And many are still holding significant trauma and a great deal of highly charged and other stagnant emotional content within their bodies. Just because someone makes the time to go to therapy, to sit down and talk, and maybe they feel heard, and they're gaining whatever intellectual insight, it doesn't mean that the wounds are actually healing. Maybe to some extent, but anyway, it's a dynamic that in many ways reflects the superficiality of our culture. And again, therapy can be a valuable component of one's healing path, but on its own, it's just not going that far. Another trap that many people are falling into nowadays is the overuse of substances like ayahuasca, psilocybin, MDMA, and ketamine. And while there may be some therapeutic benefit, it's often limited. I've seen numerous instances of people who have suffered a great deal of trauma. Maybe they're dissociated from their bodies. There's this profound disconnect. And even though they've gone through repeated ayahuasca ceremonies or maybe doing synthetics like MDMA and ketamine, and yet that trauma is still very palpable, and the disconnect from their bodies, they're still very much dissociated. And it's a clear indication that the deep emotional wounds are not healing. Many people fail to understand is that these psychoactive substances can trigger extraordinarily powerful biochemical responses. The experience can feel intense and even profound. You may gain insights and start connecting the dots, but that's not the same as the deep and lasting healing or true transformation. It's certainly not the same as the kind of foundation that's built over years of intensive practice and discipline. For some, these substances have become another form of escapism, an attempt to bypass the real and often difficult work of addressing the root causes of their suffering. So many people nowadays are looking for a quick fix, but that's not how healing works. The truth is, a lot of people simply are not courageous, are hardworking enough to do the real sustained work involved in healing and transformation. There's no integration, no structure, and no foundation. And we have to be honest too, because substances like MDMA and ketamine, especially when they're used repeatedly, can have long term consequences, including potential neurological damage. Even ayahuasca and psilocybin, while often regarded as sacred or natural, in some instances can be incredibly destabilizing, especially for those who have existing mental health issues. In that sense, the current wave of healing through psychedelics really isn't that much different from people dropping acid back in the 60s and 70s. Many people spend the majority of their lives running from the issues and emotions they rather not face. We numb ourselves to our feelings, find something to keep us distracted, whether it's gambling, social media, sex, or shopping, or scrolling indefinitely on our devices. Or we medicate ourselves with food and pharmaceuticals and alcohol and other recreational drugs. And the problem with this approach is that you cannot deny a truth without giving it strength beyond all endurance. The emotional wounding we try so hard to forget or numb ourselves to will eventually cause us to blow up our lives through acts of self sabotage, often playing out in our professional lives and our relationships. And in time, it will express itself through our bodies as some form of pathology. Could be digestive distress or heart disease or cancer or any number of other physiological manifestations. When the traumas of my own childhood and adolescence began to resurface in my mid 20s, I found myself forming attachments to women who were disinterested, unavailable. Some were quite abusive, and others were just not a good match. Needing so desperately at that time to have someone in my life that I can love and be loved by, I kept trying to make those relationships work, which led to them on occasion blowing up on me. And that only perpetuated my suffering. The pain I felt at those times was excruciating, yet I had an instinctive sense that I needed to fully immerse my awareness in the depths of all that pain. I'd be breathing from the depths of those emotions. And at a certain point, I could feel them breaking open and coming out of my body in waves. Faced with numerous other challenges, I often resisted, shut down, or I reacted in ways that were not at all productive. But over time, I gradually taught myself to face the issues head on by addressing any issues, concern, or situation to the best of my ability. Whenever I felt sadness, or grief, or frustration, or longing, or other emotional responses, I kept reminding myself to breathe from the depths of whatever I was feeling in that given moment. It's such a critically important part of our healing and growth to face the issues concerning us to the best of our ability. And of course, that's a lot easier said than done, but do the best you can, even if you feel awkward, even if you're shaking at times. And if necessary, reach out for support from a friend, family member, even a therapist. It's also important to remember that our lived experiences and the emotional responses tied to them need to be thoroughly digested. Give yourself permission to feel your authentic emotional responses, allowing the feelings to be exactly as they are. Center your awareness in the depths of these feelings, breathing softly and deeply, and following them as they go through their progression. Your feelings may intensify, they may spread to other parts of your body, and other feelings may emerge. As you continue to breathe from the depths of those feelings, they will soften and become more diffuse. The emotions that arise in response to the loss of a job, financial insecurity, the death of a loved one, or a devastating breakup or unresolved attachment issues can be extraordinarily painful and will take longer to process. Minor frustrations and upsets, on the other hand, can often be worked through more quickly. The more consistently you work with this practice, the more you increase your processing capacity and the more resilient and capable you'll become. The training I went through with my mentor Horace and with Shifu Li Tai Liang, along with the time I spent with Buddhist monks, Nepali sadhu, Indian gurus, and adepts of other intensive spiritual traditions, has given me a depth of insight into healing and spiritual development that most people simply do not have access to. And the truth is, in today's modern day world, very few people have any kind of healthy or realistic model for what true healing and spiritual development actually looks like. Intensive daily practice is one of the core aspects of every ancient spiritual tradition I've encountered. Buddhist monks, Indian yogis, sadhus, adepts from other Asian traditions often spend hours each day in deep meditation. And those who attain mastery in the internal martial arts like Xingyi Quan and Baguazhang, which are rooted in Taoism, not only train in the physical forms, but devote significant time to internal practices that build and circulate qi. Among Native Americans across the plains and in the Mountain West, intensive practices like the Vision Quest and Sundance involve fasting without food and water for 4 days and nights. Many of those who commit themselves to these paths developed extraordinary capabilities, some exhibiting what could be described as paranormal abilities. Students who excel academically usually spend a lot of time studying, and athletes and musicians typically dedicate countless hours to practice. Yet the vast majority of people in our modern day world are not engaged in any kind of intensive spiritual practice, and it definitely shows. The stress, trauma, unprocessed emotions they carry, combined with the physical toxins from poor diet, pharmaceuticals, smoking, drinking, and other recreational drug use, all accumulate in the body. And over time, they become stagnant and grow little, if at all. Their bodies often begin to break down at an accelerated pace, causing them to age faster than they otherwise would. In my mid 20s, I began developing a system of meditation practices that I've been teaching to nearly everyone I work with, so long as they're lucid. And I've been doing this for over 3.5 decades now. But over the years, I have found it difficult to get many people to do these practices outside of session. As a result, I end up working so much harder because the bodies of those who don't practice are more armored and hold a great deal of stagnation. They don't feel as much. Their bodies are usually nowhere near as responsive to the healing sessions, and they take much, much longer to heal to actually get the results. And I also spend a lot more time connecting the dots for them because their lack of awareness of their own emotions and bodies. The system of practices I teach awaken the innate healing intelligence that resides within the body and mind. When done consistently, these practices enable you to dissolve the layers of body armor and cleanse the body of stagnation and physical toxins. They help you to digest trauma and other lived experiences and the emotions attached to them. This in turn facilitates healing within the body, improving the functions of the organs and systems. The body and mind become more malleable and therefore more responsive to the healing sessions. As a result, those I work with who actually do their homework are able to progress at a much more accelerated pace. Our lives in this modern day world can be incredibly demanding. So many of us are working and commuting long hours, also caring for children, our aging parents, and managing other responsibilities. Add to that the endless distraction of our devices and digital media. For all these reasons, we need to be doing intensive daily practice more than ever. As I mentioned earlier, Buddhist monks, Indian sadhus and yogis, and those who attain mastery in the internal martial arts, such as Xingyi Quan and Baguazhang, usually practice for at least a few hours a day. And many spend the majority of their waking hours in deep meditation or engaged in other forms of intensive practice. Most of you are not going to be doing such long hours of intensive daily practice. Yet, with all the craziness of the world we're living in, all the stresses we're contending with on a daily basis, and our emotional responses to it all, we seriously need to be doing at least an hour of daily meditation and possibly other forms of practice as well. Yes, it definitely involves a time commitment, but you'll find yourself happier and healthier, living with greater clarity, and realizing more of your true potential. For many years now, I have been working as a conduit to allow an extraordinarily powerful presence to work through me to facilitate healing within the bodies and minds of those I work with. On many levels, I love the work I do, especially when I have the opportunity to work with growth-oriented individuals who are willing to do whatever it takes to heal their bodies and minds. The greatest challenge I face is that those truly growth-oriented individuals may be only about 1 out of every 10 people. While so many people say they want to heal, when it gets down to it, they're neither willing or able to do what it takes to truly heal and grow. And there are a number of reasons for that. It was actually much easier for me to do my work back in the 1990s. People were far less distracted, far more present, largely because we didn't have the distraction of digital technology, no smartphones, no social media, and other distractive technologies. If people would come to me with a presenting issue or concern, maybe they were struggling with anxiety or depression, had gone through a breakup or divorce, or even facing physical challenges, digestive distress like ulcerative colitis, heart disease, or had suffered a stroke. Others maybe injured in an automobile accident. And in so many instances, I'd start working with people, and the presenting issue would have made enormous progress or even completely resolved. And yet, many of these same individuals would continue to work with me indefinitely over months or years because they found that they were making enormous progress in other areas of their life and they wanted to continue to progress further. That all began to change with the advances in digital technology. As smartphones, social media, and other digital content became more and more ubiquitous, people became increasingly distracted. Their attention span shortened. Instead of working with me for months or even years, it became more common for people to show up for one or a few sessions and disappear. And that's really sad because when people stop after one or a few sessions, the trauma, emotional wounding, physiological health issues that truly could heal often never do. And they continue to live with it, sometimes for the remainder of their lives. And they never gain the clarity or internal resources that would enable them to truly heal and realize their full potential. To compensate from the attrition resulting from people's ever shrinking attention span, I would be teaching classes in New York City every Monday night. And then every other Tuesday, I would commute to Boston and teach classes up there. And I draw people from the classes. But I had to keep doing that indefinitely. In many ways, it was frustrating, and I was working 10 times harder, but you do what you have to do to survive. But I stopped doing the classes at the height of the COVID pandemic. And even though the pandemic is fading into the rearview mirror, it's still much harder to get people to show up for in-person events. And for that reason, I've been shifting to working online in order to reach more people. It's important for all of us to understand that our devices and digital media have been deliberately designed to be highly addictive. firing off our brain's dopamine reward system and altering the biochemical makeup and neurostructure of our brains. At the same time, many of us are already operating in a state of sensory overload. The sheer volume of digital media we consume on a daily basis overwhelms our processing capacity, especially since so much of it is designed to be overstimulating, just to keep us engaged and entertained. As our attention gets pulled deeper into our devices and endless feeds, the internal processes that are so crucial to our well being become compromised. We're also becoming increasingly disconnected from our authentic core. And while it may seem like we're connecting with more people than ever before, much of that connection remains superficial, making it harder for us to be truly present with ourselves or with anyone else for that matter. That's why it's important for us to be especially mindful, not just how much digital media we're consuming, but also the kind of content we're allowing into our awareness every single day. Short form video began gaining traction on TikTok and soon thereafter, Instagram and Facebook Reels, followed by YouTube Shorts. Now that so many people are consuming this kind of fast, bite sized content, it's become increasingly difficult to get anyone to engage in longer form material. It's eroding our attention span, exacerbating our lack of patience, and having a negative impact on our cognitive, emotional, and spiritual development. It's also compromising our ability to be present with ourselves and to form and sustain healthy attachments with others. You can see it reflected in the way many people approach healing today, jumping from one practice or therapeutic modality to the next. And part of this comes from how we've been conditioned to expect instant gratification. When people don't experience immediate life changing results, they often get bored, lose interest, and give up. But in all the spiritual traditions I'm familiar with, whether it's Buddhist monks, Indian yogis, sadhus, Taoist, adepts, and those walking the traditional Native American paths, it's common to commit to a single system over the course of a lifetime. While they may gradually work up into more complex and advanced practices, they remain rooted in the same essential disciplines. It's through that consistency and deepening that true development occurs. If you're truly committed to healing and growth, it is critically important for you to be facing the issues concerning you head on to the best of your ability. Learn to work skillfully with your authentic emotional responses. Start by noticing what you feel in response to any challenge you're facing. The issues that arise are concerns that weigh upon you. Center your awareness in the depths of these feelings and bodily sensations, wherever they show up in your body, breathing softly and deeply. And take time to explore different practices and therapeutic interventions and make consistent use of those you find to be most effective. And if there's a spiritual path you genuinely resonate with, then walk it fully. Make a concerted effort to show up daily with greater presence, living as fully as you can. What is it that you most want to do or become? Where would you like to go in this world? And at the same time, make space for the people who matter most, your friends, your family, your partner, or even strangers you encounter along the way. Consider too the animals in this world, so many dogs, cats, and other beings in need of love and care. Maybe even take one into your home if you're able to. Keep this in mind and follow through with action. What can I be doing to make a difference in this world, in the lives of others? I want to thank you for joining me for this video. Do look below, click like and subscribe if you haven't already done so. There will also be a link to the more detailed article, so click on the link to read the article if you'd like. I do work with people individually. I offer sessions remotely over the phone. I also work in person, which is by far the most powerful work. So if I could be of assistance to you in any way, do feel free to reach out to me. Best way to reach me is through my Google Voice number, where you can leave a message. That's 332 333 5155.